Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all well. We're going to be doing a client tutorial today. This is definitely something I want to do more of in 2020. I asked you guys on Instagram what you want to see and you guys said soft glam. So I've got my lovely model Louise in today and I created this look right here. So if you want to see how I created this look, then keep on watching. So the first thing I'm going to do is sanitize my hands. Obviously, this is a crucial step. Always got to make sure you sanitize your hands in front of your clients. And then I'm going to go in with the Garnier Micellar Water and I'm just going to give my model's skin a cleanse just to make sure that the skin is prepped for makeup. I always like to do a nice cleanse before I go in with any moisturizers or anything like that. I also get a lot of questions about how to make foundation look really nice, how to make it not look cakey, and I just feel like a good skincare at the beginning is definitely what is the best makeup prep. So making sure you're doing a good cleanse, good moisturiser, good eye cream is definitely the best makeup prep for me and what I find works the best. So I'm just going over all the skin, making sure it's all nice and cleansed before we go in with our first skin product. I'm taking the Fourth Ray Beauty Matcha Face Milk. This is lovely under the skin and I'm just taking a couple of drops on that on my metal palette. And I'm going to just buff it into the skin with a MAC brush. So I'm just going all over the skin and I'm just making sure this is really buffed in as well. I feel like when you can go in with moisturisers sometimes and you just kind of like buff them on because you can't really see it like a foundation, it can kind of sit on the skin a bit. So I really like to work this in for a significant amount of time just to make sure it's all buffed in. And I also like to do this now so that the moisturiser or any other face product that I'm using has time to sink into the skin whilst I'm doing the eyes. I feel like if you are going to use a moisturiser or something like that, you must kind of like do it as the first step, and so it's got time to sink into the skin and so that the foundation isn't kind of like sitting on top of it a little bit. So yeah, I'm just going in and buffing that in now. Next, I'm going to take an eye cream. This is my favourite one from Declio. It's the Anti-Dark Circles Vitamin Glow one. And I'm just taking a fluffy brush and popping that underneath the eyes. I take a really, really small amount of this. Eye cream is something that I've been using more often on my clients and I feel like it makes the world of difference in terms of how smooth the under eye looks. So I use this Declio one, I absolutely love it. I also like the Ole Henriksen Banana Bright eye cream, I think that's fabulous. But I just take a really small amount and buff it underneath the eyes because I feel like it really smooths out the under eye, it reduces any dryness. So when you're putting like loose powders on, if you are doing like a baking technique or something like that, it means that your under eye is going to look smoother, more hydrated, not as dry. And I also find that it really helps with creasing as well. Next, I'm moving on to brows. I'm going to use ABH Dip Brow in Soft Brown and the Brow Powder Duo in Soft Brown as well. And I'm just taking a ABH 7B brush. This is my favourite brow brush. And I'm just lining underneath the brow first. I'm starting from about a third of the way in. I don't really like to go in with any initial product in the front of the brow. I like to go in with tiny amounts that I've got left in the front of the brow. So I'm just doing the underneath first and I'm just lining underneath Louise's brow. And I'm taking small amounts of brow pomade. So I tend to use brow pomade on the underneath of the brow and then a brow powder on the top and in the front of the brow also, because I feel like in these areas you can really buff out the brow powder and make it look more natural, whereas underneath I do want that structure, even though I am going for more of like a textured brow today because I am going to use some soap brows, but we are going to come back to that later in the video. As you can see, I'm applying product and then using the spoolie end to kind of really brush that product through. This is how you're going to get a more natural brow, but you're still going to keep that structure. So as you can see, I'm putting the product on and then I'm swapping it around and I'm really, really buffing that in and making sure that it all looks still natural and that you can still see Louise's natural brow hairs. So I'm just going in and filling the brows in. And I'm just trying to keep everything neat as well. I mean, you can carve the brows out, which I am going to do next, but I like to make sure that my brow is neat to begin with. It just makes it easier when it comes to carving the brow out because you're not trying to correct anything. You're just literally trying to shape the brow a little bit. So I'm trying to keep everything as neat as possible and I'm moving on to the other brow now. So I'm just going to do exactly the same on this side as what I've just done. Just filling in the brows using the pomade and the powder as well. I really, really like the ABH brow powders at the minute. I've got the shades Soft Brown, Chocolate and Dark Brown and I'm really loving them. Next, I'm going in with P. Louise Base in the shade number 4, my absolute favourite, and I'm using a MAC 252 brush, and I'm just applying this all over the lid at first. I always like to go in and kind of like distribute the product across the lid before I go in and carve the brow out. I feel like this kind of like distributes the product across my brush and really thins out the product, so when I do carve the brow out, I've not got all that excess product on my brush. So I always like to go all over the lid, in the inner corners and on the outer corners as well with the product before I go in and carve the brows out. I like to go more on the outer corner and more on the inner corner because it just makes it easier when it comes to buffing the foundation, concealing around that area. You get more of like a transition, if that makes sense. So I like to put more on these areas so that it doesn't just look like the eyes are stuck on. So I'm just applying that, and then I'm going to start carving out the brows. So I always start in the front and I'm using the side of my brush before I go in with the tip, and I'm just doing little bits at a time. Like, I think people think you have to kind of like carve the brows out in one go, but I like to go in little stages, let go of the brow, come back, look, see what I need to do next, and then go back in and start carving again. So I'm just using really slow, gentle movements. I know we are out of focus for this bit. I am sorry, guys, I did not know. So I'm just going in with really slow carving motions, and because I am pulling the brow up a little bit so that I've got more stability when I am carving the brow out, you need to keep letting go of the brow, seeing where the brow's at, and then going back in. Otherwise, you're going to end up with two completely different shaped brows. So I'm just putting a little bit more PLOUISE base on just to make sure I've got that full coverage base. I mean, for me, guys, PLOUISE base is just the one. If you're doing any kind of eyeshadow look, even if I'm doing soft glam, I will always go in with PLOUISE base. It's my favourite. I don't think anything compares. I do not know what I would do without it. So I'm just doing the same on the other side, carving the brows out, distributing the product all over the lid. This is so satisfying to watch, don't you think? Like, I'm just watching this now and thinking, that is so satisfying. But I'm just taking it across the bridge of the nose as well, and I am actually going to apply it between the brows because I feel like because it's on the eyelids, it's got to be in between the brows as well, so that you've kind of got that same shade, that same tone in the centre of the face. Like I said, you don't want the eyes to look like they're stuck on, which can sometimes happen when you do eyes first, so I try and make sure that I kind of like buff out in that whole area. So I'm just finishing off carving out the brows, and then I'm going to go in with a fluffy brush in a second, and I'm going to buff everything out, just finishing off a little bit of carving. And here we go with the fluffy brush. So I start on the edges, on the outsides and insides of the eye, and in the centre of the brow, and I just use really light buffing motions. So I'm barely applying any pressure with this brush. I'm letting the bristles do all the work for me, and I'm also patting all over the lid as well. This is going to remove any excess base, just to make sure that we have got an even, flawless coverage ready for eyeshadow. I think this step is really crucial. I think people sometimes go in with the PLOUISE base and kind of don't really know why it's working. Definitely try tapping over the lid. It'll get rid of any excess, and you can see how much it smooths it out. If you just watch this bit, you can see how much that just smoothed it out, removed any excess, and it's such a simple step as well. So I'm just making sure that's all buffed into the skin. And I'm going to go in with eyeshadow. I'm going to go in with the Amrezy palette, and I'm going to take the shade 1988 and New Yorker, and I'm going to use a By Bonnie brush, and I'm going to press that into the lid. So I'm taking tiny amounts of product at a time, and I'm just going to press that in. I've been doing eyeshadow this way for so long. Going in with the darker colours first means you're going to get way better colour payoff. Honestly, like, you're going to get so much more depth to your look because you're going in with those darker shades first. I feel like if you start off with the lighter shades and then go in with the darker ones, you're not going to get as much colour payoff with the darker ones, and therefore your look isn't going to have as much depth to it. So I'm just going in and I'm patting that on, and I find that pressing the product on to kind of like set the base works best for me. And then I'm going to kind of like buff out the edges. So this size brush is amazing. I love this brush so much. It's the perfect shape and size so that you can really pack on that colour, but when it comes to buffing the edges out, it's such a nice blending brush as well. So I think it's important to really buff out your edges before you go in with your next shade. If you've got too much of a harsh line, I think you'll find it difficult to go in with your next transition shade, whereas if you just kind of buff out that edge a little bit, it makes things so much easier. But definitely keep packing on that colour. Even when you think you've packed on enough colour, go in with even more because you really want that base to be set. So as you can see, I'm going in with so much dark brown, and then I'm going to take a Peaches Makeup PC10 brush, I think this is, and the shade New Yorker, and I'm just going to buff that right out. So I'm going all over the edges of that 1988 shade, and I'm just using circular motions to buff that out. And I'm using really light pressure here, so I'm letting the product and I'm letting the bristles do all the work for me. I'm just guiding the brush over the eye. If you go in too heavy with your blending, you'll find that you get patches and things like that. But if you use a really light motion, you'll find that your blends will be so effortless and seamless, and you'll just think, wow, that was so easy to blend. So go in with really light motions, and I'm just going to use the brush, and I'm kind of going to use it on its side a little bit as well. I like to go in the front of the eye with kind of like the tip of the brush like I'm doing now, whereas when I go on the edge, I use the side of the brush. If you can see, I'm using the side to really buff that into the P. Louise base and kind of like add that transition, add that blend, add that fade, because the side of the brush applies less pressure in that area as well. So once I've buffed in all that New Yorker shade, what I've been doing recently to make my looks more caramelly and more mustardy is going in with the Huda Beauty Topaz Obsessions, and I'm taking this lovely orangey yellow shade. It's like a mustard honey shade, and I'm going to take a Morphe blending brush and I'm just going to ever so slightly blend this on the very edge of the eye, because I feel like no one makes these caramel coloured eyeshadows anymore, you know, like MAC Uninterrupted or Makeup Geek Chickadee, Desert Sands, things like that. So I'm using a really mustardy honey yellow to kind of buff the edge and make that look so caramelly, so gorgeous. So I'm just repeating all these steps on the other side of the eye, and I'm also going back in with my 1988 shade. When you are doing this reverse blending technique, you can lose your original shade that you put down. Just through all the blending process, that colour naturally dims down a little bit, so I always like to go back in with that original shade and add that colour in, add that depth in, and just really get everything nice and blended and seamless. So I'm just doing that on both eyes now, making sure that all those colours are standing out, and I'm switching between my Peaches brush and my By Bonnie brush just to make sure again that that blend is so effortless. Next I'm going to go in with the Beauty Bay Living My Best Light Liquid Crystals in the shade Precious Topaz. This is my probably most used product on clients. I absolutely love this stuff. They do so many shades. I'm obsessed. So I'm just taking a little bit of this and popping it all over where we put that dark brown, just to add a little bit of extra sparkle. It's not so much of a glitter, it's so fine. It just looks so beautiful and so much better than a chunky glitter. So I'm just kind of using a press and flick motion because I don't want to add too much and I want it to be super blended, but I don't want to disturb that eyeshadow underneath either. So I'm just lightly flicking small amounts of product on, and I have put a little bit more on this eye that I'm working on now. So I'm going to go back in with the other eye and just add a little bit more. But guys, this Precious Topaz shade is unreal. I'm going to link everything I've used in the description box below for you as well. I'm going to take a black eyeliner and I'm going to scribble it on my hand to kind of warm it up a little bit. I hate using my hands. I always like using my metal plate. But my hands are sanitised, as you guys know, and this is the only way that I feel like you can get this effect. So I don't know about you guys, but I feel like eyeliners and lip liners work so much better when they're warmed up. I often keep like lip liners and eyeliners in a very warm place, so like on my radiators before I start my day or something, because they just work so much better and they're so much more creamier when they're warm. So I always like to warm up that bit of eyeliner on my hand first, and I'm just taking a ZOEVA brush and I'm just going to buff that along the lash line. And this is the easiest way to kind of like line the eyes before you go in with any lashes. It kind of completes the lash line so that when you put lashes on, they don't look like stuck on lashes and you haven't got those like gaps at the end. But a smoky liner is my fave. It looks so much more natural and seamless than that harsh eyeliner that everyone used to do a couple of years ago. Smoky liner is the one, and it's so much easier than trying to get eyeliner neat. So this is my favourite technique at the moment. I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm ever so slightly lifting the brow to give me more control and so I can get into all those nooks and crannies of the eye, and just very gently blending this black liner on the lash line. And you can see how easy this is and how easy it was for me to do as well. It literally took 2 minutes. Then I'm going to go in with a Linda Hallberg eyeliner in the shade Brown. I absolutely love this eyeliner. I'm just telling Louise now to look all the way up, and if she feels like she needs to blink, just blink, and if her eyes water, it's totally fine. This is why we do eyes first. So I'm just taking that brown eyeliner again and I'm dipping a brush in it because I find that a brush is so much more gentle in the waterline than a pencil. You've got more surface area on the brush and it's going to be more comfortable for your client and their eyes aren't going to water as much. Then I'm going to take this tiny little Morphe brush and 1988 again, and I'm going to buff that pencil out. So I'll only do this step if I'm working with darker colours on the lash line. As you can see, we've got no base makeup on now. So because I'm using a dark brown, I'm just going straight in with it, and I can really get close to that lash line without worrying about any fallout or anything like that. So I'm just doing this, going right along the lash line with this teeny tiny Morphe brush. This is actually an amazing brush for this step. I can get really close to that eyeliner and really buff it out before we go in with any base products. So I'm just taking that really gently along the underneath of the eye, and I'm cleaning away any excess fallout that we've had throughout the eye process with some micellar water and a couple of cotton pads. Next, I'm going to go in with the NARS Illuminator in the shade Hot Sand. This product, guys, Oh my God, I'm obsessed. Look how beautiful this makes the skin look. It melts like butter into the skin and it doesn't make you look like the Tin Man. I can't stand those illuminator drops that make your skin look like literally the Tin Man. And I understand the process, but I feel like when you use those products, it really highlights texture. Whereas this is more of a moisturizer product with glow in it, kind of like the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. Absolutely love that product. But those illuminator drops that are quite oily, I find that they add so much texture to the skin, even when you put foundation over the top. So this is my favorite product to prep the skin with. It's beautiful. It just blends, it melts into the skin. Oh, it's lush. And again, I'm just really making sure this is worked into the skin. When you feel like it's all blended, go back in again and blend and blend and blend and blend, because it's one of those products, again, that you can't really see because it's not a foundation. So you really want to make sure this is all buffed into the skin so you're not going to get any cakiness, and so that the foundation isn't going to sit on top of that product as well and not merge with the skin. So next I'm going to go in with foundation. I'm going to use the NARS Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love this foundation. I'm taking the shades Syracuse and Barcelona. These are two of my absolute favourite shades. Louise usually wears Syracuse, but she said it's sometimes a little bit dark for her, so I mixed in a little bit of Barcelona as well, and I'm just distributing that with a smaller brush. This is just the brush that I use to mix the foundations, and then I'm going to go in with a Peaches Makeup PC27. This is the ultimate foundation brush. I know you're looking at this like, Rebecca, this looks like a blusher brush. Honestly, try it. This is amazing. You can get in all the nooks and crannies. It's small enough so that you can get in all those small areas, but it's big enough so that it doesn't take you so long to do makeup with a small brush. So what I'm doing is I'm just buffing in that foundation, and I'm using sweeping motions and patting motions. By patting the foundation, you're pushing it into the skin, and it's going to make it so much more long wearing, and you're really going to get that flawless finish as well. I also like to work in sections when it comes to foundation. I really like to concentrate on one area, making sure that's all perfect before I move on to the next one. So I've kind of done that whole cheek and side of the nose area, and then I'm moving on to the next cheek, and I'm really buffing that in, making sure it's all down the neck, all moved into the jawline. I often get my clients to look all the way up so that I can really get on the jawline, really buff it in, because no one wants patchiness under the jawline, because you might not see it while you're doing their makeup, but everyone else can see it when they leave. So it's really important to really buff it into the jawline as well. And I'm kind of avoiding slightly underneath the eyes, so I'm not putting any foundation there, or I'm not putting a thick layer of foundation there. I might buff it in later, but I kind of like to leave that area free of too much product, because I feel like when you put too much product underneath the eyes, it can cause creasing and that kind of thing, and it's unnecessary as well. Like, if you get a really good concealer, there's honestly no need for so much product underneath the eyes. But speaking of concealer, we're going to go in with concealer next. I'm going to use the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer in the shade Ginger. Wow, guys, if you have not tried this, don't sleep on it. It's beautiful, it's amazing, it's creamy. I mean, they say soft matte, but I think it's so creamy but doesn't crease at the same time. It's so nice. Honestly, you need to try it. So I'm just popping that in all my areas where I conceal with a MAC 252 brush. So I apply concealer underneath the eyes, in the centre of the forehead, a little bit on the nose, top lip and chin, just to kind of highlight those areas. And I feel like the centre of the face usually needs more coverage than the outer section of the face as well. So I'm just distributing that product first before I go in with a brush and buff it all out. As you can see, I have avoided that little brown eyeshadow that we've got underneath the eye as well. So you will see that when I come to this area and I'm buffing underneath the eye, that I do avoid this as well, because I've literally just put that brown eyeshadow down. I don't want to cover it. So when it comes to buffing in concealer, I use a really light pressure and a blending brush, preferably synthetic. I find that synthetic brushes are so much better than natural hair brushes. For some reason, I'm using so many synthetic brushes nowadays. I tend to don't really even go near my natural hair brushes. I'm loving a synthetic brush. So I'm using a synthetic blending brush, kind of like an eyeshadow brush. I think this is a Morphe one. I've had this one years. And I'm just buffing that concealer in really gently around the eyes. You don't want to disturb your client, make their eyes water, that kind of thing. So I'm just going in very gently and buffing that in, and I'm using really small amounts of product. So I'm not adding any extra product onto the skin, only what we applied originally. And as you can see, as I'm going closer towards the brown eyeliner, I'm just buffing that in to make sure that there's no harsh edges. And sometimes as well, when I'm working on areas like the forehead and the chin where the skin and the face is quite flat, I'll go in with my foundation brush as well and swap between my concealer brush, foundation brush, just to make sure that's all buffed in. Whereas underneath the eyes, you need a smaller brush just to get in those areas. But on the forehead and the chin, I tend to use a bigger brush. Then I'm going to go in with cream contour. This is the ABH Cream Contour Kit in the shade Medium, and I'm going to use the shade Cinnamon. Now, guys, I am actually fully out of focus for this whole thing, but I thought I'd leave it in anyway because you can see the technique that I am doing. I'm literally just applying that in all the areas where you would bronze. You need this Peaches makeup brush. I don't know what number it is, but I'll put it on screen for you now. Honestly, this brush is the one for cream contour. You don't even have to do anything. The brush does all the work for you. The shape of it is amazing. It's honestly, it saved my life. It saved me time. It just like, if you watch me, you can just see that I just press it on. Honestly, you need this brush. I'm going to link it in the description box for you. But I'm just going in and pressing that in all the perimeters of the face. So I'll do some cream contour on the cheeks, jawline, chin, and around the forehead as well, just to make sure that those areas are bronzed. And I feel like it adds so much dimension to the skin as well without applying just a powder bronzer. So I'm just buffing that into the skin, and it's just making the skin look nice and bronzy, giving it more dimension, making the skin look more 3D, and I'm just pressing that in. As you can see now, you can actually see the technique that I'm doing now that we're back in focus. I'm just popping a little bit on the nose as well. Then I'm going to go in with the Makeup Revolution Concealer Correct in the shade Banana. Now, you might be thinking, Rebecca, why on earth are you putting a corrector over foundation? This is a technique that I started doing on myself, and I've transitioned it over to doing it on my clients. So I like to take a banana shade, like a really yellow corrector or concealer, and apply it just underneath the eyes and kind of in the center of the face as well, because I feel like it really brightens that area and really makes it stand forward. And I love this yellow tone. I've seen a couple of makeup artists do it recently where they have kind of like this yellow tone under eye and center of the face, and I think it looks amazing. Was it makeup by Mario and Kim K that did it first? I do not know, but I'm loving the way it looks on my clients, loving the way it looks on me. So this is my new technique that I do all the time. I just feel like it really brings forward the area and makes the under eye look flawless. Also, if you suffer with dark circles as well, I've found that this is a technique that really helps, especially on my clients that have quite dark circles underneath their eyes. I find that this yellow tone really cancels it out, whilst the coverage of the NARS concealer really covers it, but the tone of this yellow just evens everything out and makes the under eye look so flawless. Honestly, just try it. It's amazing. You can get different tones as well. I'm sure you can mix your banana corrector with a lighter concealer or a deeper concealer if you're wanting to switch up the tone, because I know they only do one banana shade at the moment, which is so annoying, but you can use less, you can use more. It just depends on your skin and what kind of look you're wanting to go for. So I'm just using that same fluffy Morphe brush and buffing this in the same way we did with the NARS concealer. So just going in all those areas in the centre of the face, swapping between my foundation brush and my concealer brush. Then I'm going to use the Huda Beauty Easy Bake Powder in the shade Banana Bread. Wow, this powder, guys, I have it in the shade Banana Bread and Sugar Cookie, which is the translucent one. And I'm using a ZOEVA 114 brush, and I'm patting this into the skin. So I like to press my powder into the skin before I go in with any kind of like buffing motion. I feel like this will set the product in place before we start moving it around, because I really don't want to move that concealer, foundation, cream contour underneath the powder whatsoever. I don't want to move it, so I'm pressing it in first. So I'm taking some lashes. These are the Prima lashes in the style Escape. We're gonna put some glue on these, measure them up, and then I'm gonna complete the under eye, mascara, whatever, and then we're gonna pop the lashes on. So I always like to leave my glue to dry a little bit whilst I'm doing these steps that I'm doing now. It just means that when it comes to putting the lashes on, it's so much easier. It just sticks straight away. So I'm taking this tiny little blending Morphe brush, and I'm taking the shade New Yorker, and I'm just very gently buffing that on the lower lash line. Because we did that dark brown first, the lower lash line is going to be so much easier. It just means that you go in with less product, you just blend it out, and everything blends seamlessly because you've already got that smoky lash line done. So I'm just using this tiny little blending brush and going in with a very light pressure. Obviously it's around the eye, so you need to be very careful. And then I'm taking the shade what shade is this? This might be Dreamer from the Norvina palette or something like that. I'm not sure, but I'll link it in the description box for you. I'll let you know in there. And I'm just taking a pencil brush and popping this on the inner corner, and then I'm buffing it in with a slightly larger brush as well, just to make sure that everything on that inner corner is seamless. Then I'm going to take some mascara and a disposable mascara wand. I won't talk about disposable mascara wands because you guys are probably sick of me talking about them and hygiene and stuff, but disposable mascara wands are your best friend when it comes to freelance makeup. Do not use the mascara wand on everyone. That is horrible. And if you are going to double dip, make sure you bin the mascara wand and use a fresh one before you go back into the actual product itself. Obviously, clients put their trust in us to make them look beautiful, so we need to making sure that we are providing them with a really hygiene service and that we're not putting them at risk. So disposable mascara wands are your best friend. I'll link some below. I get mine off Amazon. I think I get a pack of 200, so I'll make sure I'll pop that in the description box. So I get my clients to close their eyes when I do their top mascara and then get them to look all the way up when I do their bottom mascara. And I like to spend quite a lot of time on mascara just to make sure that I'm not putting too much pressure on my clients' eyes. I'd rather go in with small amounts at a time and make sure they're comfortable, because obviously it's not very nice when someone's invading your eye space with a mascara wand, but I just like to go in and make sure that I'm going in with a light pressure. And then I'm going to pop the lashes on. So the glue is all nice and tacky now. I'm using the tweezers to apply these. I just find it so much easier to apply them this way than to apply them with my hands. I feel like I can get right in the inner corners and really push that inner corner into the eye, the lash line, whatever it is, rather than using my hands. But I will use my hands at the end just to make sure they're all secure. Then I'm going to go in with bronzer. I'm going to use the Fenty bronzer in the shade Island. I did actually forget to film a product shot for this, so I'll link it in the description box for you. Everything I've used I'll link in the description box anyway, but I'm just applying this in all those areas where I applied the cream bronzer, and I'm using a big fluffy Peaches makeup brush just to make sure that we've got a nice all over natural bronze rather than going in with a smaller brush and creating like a more of a contoured look. I like an all over bronzy glowy look, so I'm just using a huge brush, applying loads of bronzer. Absolutely love it. Take it down the neck, take it around the hairline and everywhere that we've put the cream bronzer. Then I'm going to go in with blush. I'm going to use this blush trio from ABH called Peachy Love. I'm going to focus more on the reddy orangey blush shades, and I'm going to take that on a Peaches makeup brush. I think this is their Sculpt brush, but I love it for blush. It applies the right amount, and I find with blush as well, if it's too pigmented, you can kind of spend a lot of time buffing it out. So this brush really lightly applies blush. I can't get my words out. Yeah, it's fabulous. It's amazing for blush because it doesn't apply too much product and you can really build up that product. But this looks amazing on Louise. She really suits a peachy orangey blush. Then I'm going to go in with the Jordana Tisha Face and Sparkle in the shade Golden Rule, and I'm just going to use the cream section. I'm not actually going to go in with the loose product in the bottom. This cream on its own looks absolutely stunning. It's amazing. I personally just wear the cream on its own. But if you do want a really blinding highlight, then definitely go over the top with the loose highlight. You press it on first and then you buff out the edges. But by using this cream, I just think it makes the skin look so glowy, so fresh. And yes, you can use this over powder as well. I know it goes against the rule using powder over creams over powders, but honestly it just works. Next I'm going to go in with soap brows. I love soap brows. I think this is the only soap brows product I've tried. I know a lot of people like the Pears soap for this, but it just doesn't seem right to me or professional to use a Pears soap on clients. I prefer to go in with a proper soap brow product. So I got this one off Beauty Bay. This is from the brand West Barncoat and it's amazing. Then I'm going to line the lips using Morphe Sweet Tea lip liner. I'm very new to Morphe lip liners, but guys, they have changed my game. Popped into the Morphe store in Manchester this week and picked up like 10 lip liners, literally. They're all brown nudes. There were so many brown nudes, guys. Such a wide range of shades, which I love in a lip liner, because usually in a shade of lip liners there's like one brown nude, one pink nude, and you don't really like it, but you just buy it because it's a brown nude, whereas Morphe had so many different shades. This is the shade Sweet Tea, which is definitely my favourite. I'm obsessed with it. It's that warm brown nude. I just absolutely love it, love it, love it. Then I'm going to go in with a Charlotte Tilbury lipstick in the shade Hepburn Honey. So I'm just going to dispense a little bit of this and use a brush. Don't double dip into your lipsticks, people, not hygienic. So I'm just going to use a MAC 242 brush. I've used this brush for lip for a while now and I really like the shape of it. Then I'm going to mix 2 glosses. I'm going to use HMB Cosmetics Ride or Die and Dose of Colours gloss in the shade Honey I'm Home. These glosses mixed together are a combo. If you're looking for a brownie nude combination, this is it. So amazing. And these glosses are really, really nice too. Comfortable on the lips, never, ever, ever, ever sticky. They just look so flawless and really, really nice and glossy. I'm also resting my hand underneath Louise's chin as well, just to give me more stability when I am doing the lip. I find this helps so much. Then I'm going to go in with some setting spray. I'm going to use the ABH Dewy Set. This is absolutely amazing. It doesn't have the glitter in it, it's just the bottle that looks like that. But this is just going to set everything in place and diffuse all those powders and make everything look nice and fresh. I'm just fanning Louise dry, and that is it for the finished look. So we created this fab, soft glam, bit of sparkle, and accompanied with the full coverage, bronzy, glowy skin. So that's it for the tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you want to see next from client tutorials in the comment section below if you have any ideas or suggestions. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button if you like this video, and leave me a lovely little comment in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.